We are joined now by Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7. Bruntsy, what's up, buddy?
Not much. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, we're doing well. So Shane was telling me we're about to come back and you got you on the phone or whatever, and I was like, nope, not doing the interview. And then it kind of turned into this: what could Bruntz talk about for 30 minutes by himself? Like, what could you monologue on for 25 minutes, just no prompts?
I could probably go. I could go 25 minutes on. I could probably go on Major League Baseball for a bit. I could probably do like Major League Baseball. Yeah, I give you a 50. I can give you 15 minutes on craft beer probably.
Okay.
Why does that not surprise me?
That's pretty stereotypical, I think.
I mean, you look like a craft beer guy, and I don't even know what that is. But you look like a guy that would enjoy craft beers.
I don't have a beard though. Like, I feel like
that's true. That would help.
Much cred there.
I think the glasses help, and I think you look like you've toured a microbrewery or two.
Do you just thumb your nose up at Shafe when he falls in love all over again with Coors?
No, I can appreciate the Coors. I've got a soft spot for bad cheap beers. So
oh gosh,
that's what they do. But
gives me the willies just thinking about.
It's like me and Creed. Like, I know it's bad, but I got a soft spot for it. That doesn't mean I don't like good music. Just got a soft spot for the bad stuff.
Yeah, like when I used to live in California, you used to be able to get Olympia. That it was like this really cheap lager from Washington.
Yes. Well, why didn't you get some hams while you were at it, Bruntzy?
It was hard. It was harder to get out there. But you could get Olympia and you could get the Tecate.
Oh yeah, there you go. My buddy's from Minnesota.
Do you know they stock gas stations?
He's a big grain belt guy.
Oh, grain belt, yeah, sure. BC, he took me to a Twins game like 5 or 6 years ago, and the grain belt tall boy and a little bit of baseball is all right. That's you're living.
So Tecate, that's like a thing though, Bruntz. Like, it's a lot of places, primarily in gas stations.
Yes. Yeah, gas stations and corner stores.
Yep.
And the price is always right.
That is amazing.
My guess was that you could have gone 25 minutes on the Moneyball A's.
I could do that. I could give you about 25 minutes on like mid-aughts A's too, which is like post Moneyball, which is even worse.
So big, like Jack Cust guy.
Yeah, like Jack Cust. That was in the Sheets era when he was the big signing for a year. Kevin Kuzminoff.
Oh yeah,
Kuz.
There was a guy that used to walk around the Coliseum. See, I'm going to give you 25 minutes here.
I love it.
Would used to walk around whenever they signed Kuzminoff dressed as like an astronaut, but he was a Kuzminoff. So,
OMG.
It was. The Coos didn't last long in Oakland, but it was a fun ride while he was there.
Here I was thinking we were going to talk about an estuary that doesn't have anything to do with forming rivers or anything.
He's like the most fun player that just is never going to put it together. Mark my word.
I think Bruntz will fight you over that because he's got a Buxton over there in Minnesota that's fun for about 7-8 games at a time, and not sure he's ever going to put it together either.
I mean, he's like 10 years in. He's not putting it together. Like that's.
Did you see the video where he almost got run over in Milwaukee by the softball?
Oh yes.
Like the most Buxton way to get injured.
It's funny you said that because when Bruntzy brought it up a couple weeks ago, I said, "Is there anything more that says Byron Buxton than that?"
Getting run over by a mascot
No,
sausage.
he just would randomly slam into walls, and it's just like, did you listen, bud? You know the dimensions. Like, you're out of real estate. There's a warning track. What do you? Do you not feel the change in surface?
You can in that video, you could see the kielbasa just kind of bearing down on him, and you could just see like a 10-day stay on the DL coming, but he got out of the way, so that was good.
All right, MB. The question of the question of the week, which has Caleb Clark in it, but
yes, I assume that you'd be asking about him
because
after Tuesday.
Do you know why though? He's the only one of him really on that roster. So it would be nice if if he was good and more than, you know what I mean? So I want him to assume the role. Now, having said that, can I take the good with the bad, right? You got the good clean innings from him early, but now the bullpen is rearing its ugly head from well over the last 8-9 games. How much of the early part of the bullpen was fool's gold versus what it is now? And can they build off what Clark did the other night?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, and it's scary how much of it was like the calendar flipped to April, and then it was like everybody kind of forgot how to throw strikes. Like it's almost like it's just kind of bit everybody now. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say it was fool's gold from what they did for the first 2 months, but I mean, it definitely, you're not able to really count on, one guy that you could kind of go to right now in a pinch. The closest that I would say that's kind of been that guy is Jalen Worthley. He's been really good. Over that kind of that stretch where the rest of the bullpen's taken a dive. But I mean, it's, you look at the way that, they've lost games on this little stretch here, and it's, walking guys in late innings. I mean, even Perry the other night, he got to 1-2 on both of those guys and just didn't have the stuff to put them away for the first two batters. So they got to figure that out a little bit. And I don't know if you maybe think of bringing in a different guy in the ninth or kind of reshaping, who you have out there. But I mean, to your initial question about Clark, if he can be a lefty out of the pen that gives you, let's say, 2 or 3 innings if you need it.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 is probably asking a lot, but if you could get 2, that potentially saves you from having to use Walsh on the weekends, and maybe he becomes your midweek guy. So there's kind of that push and pull right now of how you're going to use guys. But yeah, I mean, if they could get him consistent and able to get out on the weekend, I mean, that'd be huge, because they don't have a ton from the left side that's not Perry or Worthley right now.
Bruntz, what's your level of concern on Perry moving forward? Like, how much would you be able to trust him after a couple of the outings that we've seen?
Yeah, I mean, guys are going to have those kinds of outings, and like I said, the one the other night against Creighton, I mean, he was throwing strikes. Just wasn't able to kind of get the outs. I mean, one of the guys hit one through the shift, and the other guy, I mean, you just kind of tip your cap to it. It was a nice 2-strike hit. So he's going to continue to be there. I mean, I think, the thing that they've liked the most about him in the late innings is he just has confidence. And, I think right now for a team that's kind of struggling, I mean, you need that kind of guy to perform well. So, I think they're going to keep going to him. But like I said, I mean, I don't know if maybe you look at Dice as your ninth inning guy.
He looked good the other night.
He has. And so I don't know. I mean, maybe you kind of look at that, and that's the thing. I mean, they've had a pretty democratic approach to that closing role. And I don't know if maybe you kind of, hone in on one guy to be your ninth inning guy a little more than what they've done to this point.
Let me ask you something, Bruntz, and this is why it's my favorite sport, because I do think it is the most difficult of the true skilled team sports. But I told Ravi I'm kind of over the narrative of, it means more to Creighton and this, that, and the other. I just think, Creighton has been better than Nebraska. Nebraska has not been good in midweek games to begin with. It's you double down when you see good teams like Creighton midweek. And that's a recipe for what we're getting. But if Bolt got the scenario, hey, you're going to be up a few runs heading into the ninth in a low, grimy game, he wants to play like that. Or I think he would sign up for that. How much of you're looking at 5 out of 6, and you're like, man, this sucks. But and it's baseball, I get it. But if Nebraska could just be better situationally, right? Like understanding a 2-0 count, or a clutch hit when you got a guy on second or moving a guy over with less than an out, or it just seems like the little bugaboo things have spiraled into this 5 out of 6 thing. Is that an excuse, or is that just baseball?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Do you get that sense?
No, I know what you're saying. I mean, I think anecdotally, I think they've been better situationally this year at the plate than what they were last year. Like last year, it felt like they struck out too much. They really failed to move guys. And I think they've been better at it this year. I think they're able to manufacture runs a little bit more. But, I mean, the other night, the wind is just howling out. And, it was just a lot of weak contact. I was really kind of surprised. I mean, you just had to basically get a ball up into the air, and it was probably going to go out.
Well, we saw it doom them, right?
Yeah, right. And so I think that's, that's the unfortunate part of it is sometimes the approach, at the plate hasn't been what it needed to be. And, I don't know. I mean, I think, on this recent kind of stretch, I mean, they blew the lead on Friday against Rutgers. They had the lead against Creighton. I mean, I think I kind of tend to say it's a little bit more of, those lulls you go through during the course of the year. It's a little bit unfortunate, timing wise for Nebraska that lull came right on the back end of being in the host conversation and all of a sudden being ranked. So, right now it feels like a team that just needs something good to happen. And I feel like that was probably the most crushing part of that loss the other night was like, you got a chance to win what was a pretty kind of grimy, tough midweek game. You got good performances on the mound from guys that hadn't been very good recently, and that was a positive. And you weren't able to close the deal. So, this is going to be a really important weekend series against Maryland. Who's a good team that's kind of in the same spot as Nebraska, where they played well, but maybe some of the results haven't maybe added up with everything. So. This is a really important one to kind of get things turned around from a mental point of view for this team.
As much as it pains me to give you a little credit, I have a great memory. And I remember I tried to convince you that the preseason Big Ten rankings were relatively right. And I used Maryland as an example. And you said, well, 3 through 7 is kind of a crapshoot. Maryland's replacing a lot, not to quote you, but to quote you. And Maryland is exactly what you just said. Still got some questions. We thought some things. They just haven't been that team. So tip of the cap, Bruntzy. You weren't going to take the bait. Very, very astute. So that's the last nice thing I'll say until you get off the phone.
Well, and then Iowa too, right? Like Iowa.
Oh yeah, and that was my gimme. And you're like, I don't know what happens after 1 and 2. That's like, oh, here we go.
There's not many Big Ten teams that have the number 16 prospect in the draft pitching on Sunday.
Yep.
So they're hard to wrap your head around a little bit.
Do you feel like they should have a few more dubs? What? I detected. Bruntz, I'm done.
Bruntz, you just saw that D1 baseball has Nebraska projected as a 2 seed. But with how they've played so far in the month of April, how tenuous do you think that position is for them, not just on that 2 line, but in terms of making the tournament in general? I know that the RPI is still good. I know they still have a lot of opportunities, and the Big Ten probably isn't going to hurt them as much as it would some years, but just any sort of indication on your part that spot may not be as solid as Nebraska would hope.
Well, I mean, you got to win more than 1 out of 6. I mean, that
would be helpful.
That's the tenuous part of it. I mean, the RPI is going to be good, so you have a little bit of in terms of like the tournament qualification, you have a little bit of wiggle room there. But I mean, you gotta, you're getting into mid-April. I mean, this is the time when you have to win tough series. Nebraska does have some still has some notable midweek games left. I mean, you have to play Creighton one more time. You've got, I believe, K-State and Kansas both still on the schedule. So there's opportunity there. It's just going to kind of come down to getting it turned around a little bit. And we'll see if Nebraska can do that. But they just got to be, a little bit finer at the plate, a little bit better on the mound. Because I think it is a good team. I think they have the potential to be a good team. It's just that they, we're in the middle of April here, and I still don't think they've played their best baseball either. So, we'll see what they can get done. But I even when there was kind of the conversation about hosting, I mean, it felt like Nebraska was probably going to settle in as a 2 seed somewhere. And I mean, having to go to Terre Haute would be, I think Nebraska would take that as a 2 seed if it were offered right now. I mean, I think that would be a pretty good draw for them.
Bruntz, let me cross over here to football. And after 20 years of being in the desert, what is it about, in your opinion, that makes Coach Rule so assuring that everything's going to be okay?
I think he's got a plan. I think, a plan helps. I think a plan that's worked elsewhere helps.
Do you hear it?
Do I hear the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you see it, right?
Okay.
Like, you see with the way that they've built this team, they've built it up front, I think, in a better way than what others have done over the last 20 years, to use your time frame there. I mean, I think that helps. I think the way that they're building a roster in a very challenging era to build a roster, I think that gives you some trust. And I don't know. I mean, I think from the way he communicates, I think, he gets it. I think he understands Nebraska well. I think he understands Nebraska's place, in college football right now pretty well. And I don't know. I mean, I just, the reason that you brought him in as a head coach was you wanted somebody that's kind of built things and built things for the long term. And I think you can kind of start to see the pieces falling into place a little bit. I mean, they've got to obviously show up on the field this fall and take a step forward from where they were last year. But I mean, even, for the quarterback issues aside, I mean, I think you could see an improvement in play that, leads you to believe that things are trending in the right direction here going into year 2.
Bruntz, kind of going off of that same idea, we heard Rule talk about in his press conference on Tuesday, the transfer portal being open and guys have their right if they want to go in. And I got the sense, and maybe I'm reading too much into it because I kind of decipher that thing.
Yeah, he's a real surface level thinker, Bruntz.
Pretty aggressively. Well, me and my brother both. You've been around the family for a long time. I hear that and I go, he really is just genuinely telling you out loud that I know better than you what's best for you. If you want to leave, that's your right, but it'd be stupid. Like that's what I hear when he says that. Am I crazy?
No, not at all. I mean, it's like a parent talking to their kid. Like, yeah, you could do that, but I don't think you want to do that.
Like legally, you're allowed to,
and make it a good idea.
Yeah. The rules say you're allowed to do that. No, I think that, yeah, and he said that in different ways too, beyond just this week about, making sure that you kind of got to know, what you got to, if you're going to do it, you got to have a plan. And, there's been some guys from Nebraska that have gone in the portal that, I think have ended up in maybe in better spots, and some of that, guys that, maybe weren't Power 5 type guys. And you go down to a mid-major, you're going to play more, it's a better fit. That's great. But I mean, I think that was kind of like beware of what's out there. Like I think Nebraska, more than a lot of other schools, has kind of built their roster and the way they do things to focus more on all, 85 or 95 or however many guys are getting scholarship money right now, versus other places where it probably feels a little bit more top heavy. I mean, I'm sure Nebraska is going to have guys go in the portal, but I mean, I would, hope that it's more guys that are, looking for more playing time and not just doing it to see what's out there. Cause there's so many guys that enter the portal right now, and they might've played their last down of football just because, if you're going in there and you don't know where you're going to end up, that's a pretty scary place to be, I think.
You know, it's interesting, Brunsy, because now we're going through all the, it's like he says one thing and it's like bird crumbs and we're super hungry and we just gobble them all up. But now I'm going through these exercises of the portal. And some of this is due to Nebraska's roster size, right? Some of it is due to the, we saw a couple of recruiting guys yesterday, Link, a couple of DBs out of SMU, one at TCU. And I'm thinking, all right, the portal may have some guys enter it, and you're going to think, they could be decent players. What happened? But it could just be kind of a numbers thing based on the way that he's building this thing. Is that kind of like self-weeding? Is he preemptively preparing us for, hey, listen, I told you kind of my philosophy. It's up to those guys. Don't panic. I got this.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think when he says, yeah, that's, it's their right to do that. I mean, yeah, guys are going to leave. And
he went, Brunsy, he went as far as to say, I talk to guys, their coaches after they leave. Like, he didn't have to say that. But I wonder, and I'm like, am I reading into this? Like, he'll still care about you when you go. Like, why did he say that?
I don't know. I mean, it's also an opportunity to, get that out there, right? Like that's that's what they're trying to do. And like I told you, I mean, I think they've got the culture within those walls in a pretty good place. At least they think they do. And I mean, that's part of it. Also, is just also saying this is what we do. I mean, it's not. He's not also saying that for just our benefit of like, it's also talking to the players a little bit too of like, this is how we are. This is what it's going to be. And, if you want to be a part of it, fine. If you don't, we're good there too. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I would expect that I would be very surprised if anybody left Nebraska that it wasn't like I'm fourth on the depth chart right now. I want to play. I need to go somewhere else kind of a situation. I think if anybody leaves, it's going to be more of those types of things.
Bruntz, as always, you got my noodle turning a little bit here. Unfortunately, we gotta let you go. But so DB gets to bear the brunt of my the brunt of my thoughts here. But Bruntz,
the brunts of your thoughts.
See,
Yeah, right.
See what you did there.
Yeah.
Bruntz, we appreciate you as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.